This is the fastest path that I know to build wealth now after years of making mistakes. At first, I was building wealth the hard way, the same way everybody tells you to. Save a little bit each month and dollar cost average. Now, here is the shortcut that I would use for the entire process if I could start over again. My name is Mike, and in just the past few years, I've grown a $588,000 portfolio. I wouldn't follow the same process I follow today if I were just starting out. First, I would go to Google Sheets and I would break out and budget. I would do monthly, I would have income and expenses, and these are just some basic numbers to give you a general guideline. If they don't apply to you, put your own numbers in here. In a little bit, we're going to talk about some tips on ways to increase your income and lower your expenses. There's some ideas to follow, like you should only have a credit card if you can pay it off in full every month. You can't do any of this unless you have positive cash flow. So the goal, and it's going to take some sacrifice. I know if you're watching my channel, you are going to be willing to make those sacrifices to become very wealthy at a much younger age than anyone you know. I know you're chasing financial freedom, and I'm here to show you the shortcuts. You need to get your income way above your expenses. So you can do two things. You can increase your income and you can lower your expenses. You might have income from different sources. You might have side hustle. You might work overtime. You might get commission. You might do various things to get your income up. You might have a business. There's a bunch of different things. For debts, I'm assuming you're probably renting for a lot of you. And if I were starting out, I would try to get rid of my car payment or just drive a paid off car. I'll talk about that in a little bit. There are some ideas here from my ebook of the lazy paycheck versus the wealthy paycheck. So I would pivot to going away from this lazy paycheck where all of my money is going into different buckets, and I would pivot over to the wealthy paycheck where I manage my money differently. I would stop dropping a little bit into all of these buckets and having such a small amount working in investments, because that's how you grow your wealth, is with investments. What the wealthy do is they buy assets and they don't buy liabilities. They buy assets and they borrow from those assets without ever selling them. This is how I teach people to build wealth. This is how I learned how to build wealth. I learned this first from Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it has served me very well. The ideas in that book are concepts. They aren't to be taken exactly literally. He talks about buying individual oil stocks and things like that, going to millions of dollars or whatever. That is just take the concepts from the book. Buy assets, don't buy liabilities. Buy things that go up in value and put money in your pocket. Don't buy things that take money from your pocket and go down in value. That's going to be step one. If you have a 401k, personally, I would only invest in a 401k if there was a match. If there's no match, I'm not going to invest in a 401k. For me, now that I have seen behind the curtain of how to build wealth, I don't have a savings or emergency fund now. And if I were starting out, I would put my money in my checking, and then the rest of my money would go in my individual brokerage if I don't have a 401k. And I describe a money filtration system, which I'll give you a brief little glance of right there, but that is how you filter your money to work much harder for you. And starting out, you might not have very much. So I just put 3,000 here, and honestly, this should be 4,000 minus your expenses. So this would be like 550 per month or whatever. But you're gonna have some money, and I wouldn't like your interest rate on like who cares about a 4% interest rate on $5,000, right? If this was 5,000 and you have 5,000 here, like for me, this would go right here. Why do I care about 4% of $5,000? That's like $4 a year or like $3 a year. It's irrelevant. You need to get your income up. You need to get your expenses down. You need to stop the cash flow bleeding. So drive a paid off car, pay that bad boy off. Your ROI is better to be invested than it is to go towards paying this down faster, just so you know. I don't know if I've talked about it before, but whatever your interest rate is, that If you put dollars towards that, that's your ROI. So what I mean is if you have a car that you have a loan on and it's a 6% interest rate and you put money towards that, your ROI is 6%. That's it. Credit cards, if you have, say, $10,000 here in debt and you're not paying it off and your interest rate is 25%, you would be getting a 25% ROI for paying off that credit card. That would be the first thing I would do if I had credit card debt and I was starting from below zero. So let's talk about ways to increase income and lower expenses. If I were to increase income, there's a bunch of different things I could do. So first, probably I would make sure I start reading more self-development books, business books. My free time would be spent doing this and going to the gym. The gym is going to raise your energy levels and you're going to feel better all the time. As far as self-development and business books, I'll give you a few of my favorites. Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you haven't read it, is a great one. The Wealthy Gardener is fantastic, great, and I'm rereading it now with my girlfriend, and I follow so many of the principles in there that I didn't realize. Then Influence is one of my favorite books. The 4-Hour Work Week has some good concepts. You might hear things like the Pareto principle, where 20% of your activity drives 80% of your result. Right now, I'm reading the Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. That's a good book. I haven't finished it yet. It's maybe a little more business focused than it is investing focused. But I learned most of investments through just kind of trial and error and through doing a bunch of research on. There's only four things I focus on when I'm looking at investments, which are the holdings. I look at the dividends. I look at, and I don't care that much about income and dividends like everybody else does. I look at the expense ratio and I look at the growth. I care about growth. Dividends are nice to have. I just kind of like to get paid a couple times here and there to help manage some of the debt, but so many people chase these high income stocks when if I were to want dividends, I would just buy real estate if I wanted cash flow. So here's some other ways. So you can apply for jobs, you can work overtime, you can ask for a raise, you can get a second job. I didn't say this was going to be fun or easy. I said that if I was trying to build wealth quickly, this is what I would do. You could get a roommate. This is the best ROI between all of these, and it applies to both income and expenses. Can save you hundreds of dollars without costing hundreds or without costing many hours of your time. I personally still have roommates and I love them. They're the best. So these are some ways you can increase income. The roommate falls under cutting costs and increasing income. And for cutting costs, some of the easiest ways would be to get rid of subscriptions. They take money out of your wallet every single month, recurring. It's invisible, and you're like, oh, what's $10 here? What's $10 there? What's $30 here? What's $30 there? That adds up to a lot very quickly. That is one of the best ways to save on cutting costs. You have eating out. Start eating at home. You're going to eat healthier and you're going to focus more on good habits, like going to the gym. Like these habits will stack. Another great book would be The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It talks about how these habits stack, money stacks, skills that you build over time stack. All of these things stack. When you build a skill, you get to keep it for the rest of your life. When you get knowledge, you get to keep it for the rest of your life. You should drive a paid off car. Once your car is paid off, you might think about going and getting a new one. This is what many people do, even before their car is paid off. If you are trying to build wealth, stop doing this. When your car is paid off, drive it until the wheels fall off. That is exactly what I did even recently, even with a huge portfolio. I waited until my transmission stopped working to get a truck. I got a truck instead of a car for a tax deduction rather than for my real estate business rather than a car. And I don't need a fancy car, a fancy truck, but I want something that is reliable. So those are some of the tips. Now, as far as what to buy, I really like the tech sector. If I were starting out, let's look at some graphs here. Let's just look at the S&P 500 to give you an idea. This is a small percentage of my portfolio. If you want to know what some of my favorite things are to buy, they're in my ebook, they're in some of my other videos. Not going to dive too much into that. As far as this is concepts, concepts are what's important. So as the market's rising, if I were right now to start out in 2025 in October, You can see it's at all-time highs. Would I use margin right now? No, of course not. It's at all-time highs. Why would I want to get rid of all of my leverage when the market's at all-time highs? When it goes down, I will then go down much faster, and I've already used my leverage. I've put myself in a position of danger. I could lose all of my money by doing this, and if I don't have an emergency fund, I'm cooked. So, on the way up, you build a foundation. When you're starting out, you build a foundation. When the market dips, let's say we're starting out here and we're building a foundation, and then the market dipped rapidly, I would then lever up. I would use margin then. Again, this is not financial advice or legal advice or anything like that. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. You can lose a lot of money with margin, but you can also grow wealth quickly with margin. So I would build a foundation on the way up, and then I would lever up on the way down. I would not do, there's a bunch of things I would not do. They're all outlined in my ebook. I would not day trade. I would not buy cryptos with leverage. I would not do options. I would not, there's all sorts of things that I would avoid with leverage. You want to get broad-based ETFs. I'm not saying the S&P 500 is the best thing to buy with leverage. This is not really a very big portion of my portfolio at all. It's called an anchor and it helps keep you stable as the market goes up and down. So I like sectors. I'm pretty heavy in the tech sector. I know the growth sector is also another one of my favorites. I give specific ticker symbols in other videos. I give them in my ebook. I give them all over the place. But I really like sectors, and I think that you can beat the S&P 500. And just know that if you buy individual stocks and you do some of the no-nos on my list, you might lose a lot of money. Even if you follow what I do, you could lose money. So be very careful, do your research. This is not for the lighthearted. This is a way to grow quickly, and it's now I feel comfortable with cash flow. Like you have to have cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood of this strategy. People ask me all the time, how do I pay my margin cost? Well, guess what? I work, I have a job, I have cash flow. Right now, and starting out where I'm at now is a lot different than if I were starting out from zero. If I were starting out from zero, my strategy is much different than it is now, right? So now I need to get this margin health to a healthy number. My personal rule is to be 70% or higher. So I'm quickly using margin to get there. And in the past, in either videos or my ebook and all over the place, I talk about kind of how I manage money from it. My paycheck comes in, it goes into my investments or it goes into paying down debt. And currently what I'm doing is it goes to pay down margin. And then as I need it back, I borrow it back at low interest rates to pay down things like my mortgage, which you'll see at the end of every month here. And then if I have expenses come up, like my dog has had to go to the vet a few times recently, very unfortunate, but I would borrow the money to do stuff like that. And then when I'm getting paid, I'm paying that money back in lump sums quicker than I'm borrowing it right now. Right now, I want to get to a healthy margin percentage and I want to get this balance down a little bit. And the thing is, these are happening simultaneously. So my growth is happening at the same time as my margin is getting paid down. Very, very powerful. I haven't bought new shares since April probably. I'll look in a second here, but look at this. The last week I'm up 18 grand. The last month I'm up 33. 3 months I'm up 63. Some people that's what they make in a year. Year to date I'm up 136,000. That feels fantastic. This is how you grow. This is how you grow quickly. And when you know what you're doing, you can grow safely. Let me find, I just wanted to show you if I can find it here. Activity type, that's what I was looking for. The last time I bought shares. Let's take a look. Order fulfilled, April. What did I buy? I bought VOO. I bought $3,000 at once and I bought it April 21st. That was my last purchase. Before that, let's see, activity type, that's a little annoying. 7,500, 7,500, 15,000. April, I'm telling you, on the way down, I was buying. On the way up, I'm paying down debt. This was fantastic. That felt great. And what price did I get it at? I got it at 5.15 a share. You know what price it is right now? I'm not trying to buy at all-time highs. But if you start out, the market's going up 3 out of 4 years. You have to start at an all-time high. It might never go down. It's 788 a share. I bought at 515 a share. My average share price is 475 for VGT. My average share price for VOO, let's see, I don't even know what it is. Oh, wrong thing. That's even better. Average share price for VOO, 418 a share. What is it right now? 630 a share. This is powerful. I'm not timing the market per se. I'm always fully vested in the market. And when the market goes down, I'm levering back up. And then while the market's going up, I'm paying down that debt. I'm reducing my risk. I'm using my income to do it. Everyone keeps asking me that. I'm using my income. And a third of the debt is paid with my dividends, right? So my cost is not that big for how much I own. I get paid around 650, 700 ish every 3 months. That covers one out of every three dividend costs, whatever you want to call it, bills. And then my income is just used to pay this down and to pay off margin. Pay this down, pay off margin. That's what I'm doing right now. If you got value from this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support, and I'm continuing to provide as much value as I can to you guys. Thanks. See you next time.